Uh-oh, you're breaking out old news articles? That didn't...
I'd like to call the Maumelle City Council meeting to order. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight on a rather icy road situation, and I would suggest that we try to get done with our business as quick as possible and get home as quick as possible so maybe the roads won't freeze back before we can get there. We'll point out that Miss Davis is snowed in Little Rock, or iced in Little Rock, not snowed in, and can't get out of where she's at due to the hills and things in that area. And so she is listening on a cell phone and will be available for answers if we need her to answer anything. So don't hesitate to ask her opinion if you think you need it. So she is listening in, which with technology, that's a pretty good idea that we can accommodate that. Next item is the invocation and pledge of allegiance, and I've asked Clerk Clausen to lead us in that. If you'd all please rise.
Dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful to be here this evening and do the business in this great city which we live in. We pray that Thou will guide and direct us, help us to have the best interests of the citizens in our hearts as we make the decisions at hand. We pray for all those who are stuck or out of power still at this time. Pray that Thou would watch over and protect us all as we travel in the inclement weather. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. The next item is special guests and announcements, and our energy customer service representatives were supposed to be here tonight. They've also canceled because one of them was going to have to travel from Little Rock to get here, and so they asked could they put it off till the next meeting, and so I graciously allowed them to do that. Also, let me just point out that we did lose power in parts of Maumelle last night, but it was due to a vehicle accident. It was not related to anything that Energy could control. A vehicle took out a switchgear box along South Odom near Master's Place right there, and so that caused about 400 homes to be without power, homes, apartments, and so forth last night, some of them up till 5 o'clock this morning, and then they're trying to reset that switchgear. I think the people immediately in that area are still affected by it until they can get that switchgear replaced. So, but they've been on it all day trying to get that removed with a crane and everything else. So if you've driven down South Odom, you've seen them diligently working out there. Next item is the EPA wetlands grant. Mr. Neri is here to report on that, but Mr. Bill Richardson is home sick. So Jim is going to do that solo tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jim Neri, Director of Planning and Zoning. The gentleman who deserves all the accolades for this, certainly not me, it is Mr. Bill Richardson, but he is under the weather and couldn't join us this evening. Just a little bit of background, this program began 9 years ago when the Corps of Engineers came to the city of Maumelle and said, we'd like for you to manage the White Oak Bayou watershed. We can't tell you how because that's never been done in the state of Arkansas, and we have no money for you to do it, but we would like for you to do it. So with an initial startup grant for EPA, we were able to contract with Wetland Consultants, who Mr. Richardson is the CEO of, and away we went. So here we are 11 years later, probably 2 years out from coming to the culmination of this program. You see in front of you the latest EPA grant to the city of Maumelle, somewhat over $583,000. That brings the EPA commitment to this program for Maumelle to somewhat over $1.3 million. This is enough of a grant to see us through to the end of 2015. By the end of 2015, there are several things that we hope to have accomplished. One is a mitigation bank for developers and landowners in the watershed, where you can put credits into a wetland bank or land. You can buy that land. You can get developmental credits for putting good land in there. And that was the crux of this program from the very beginning, to preserve the very best wetlands for future generations, while maybe allowing not so good wetlands to be developed. That's what Bill and his company have been doing for a number of years, is categorizing the wetlands, what's good, what's bad, what's delineated, what's not, and this continues. This is EPA's #1 ecological program in the South. They think by the time it's over, it may be the showcase program for the United States. As I said, it's never been done in Arkansas. It's never been done in the South. Very few of these have ever been done in the United States as a whole. So we're very proud of that. I do want to make mention to you on March 15th, which is a Saturday, at 10 a.m., there will be a wetlands walk at the end of Vestal Boulevard. And then on the 29th of March, also a Saturday, we'll have a wetland scientist conduct a walk on our own wetlands trail here in Maumelle. And as I said, they're both at 10 a.m. This money costs the city nothing. It's strictly an in-kind match with all the other state agencies and federal agencies that we've partnered with, as well as staff time. So the city will be out nothing out of pocket. Bill could elaborate more than I'm going to this evening, but I wanted to let you know that the program continues. We're in good shape. And whatever questions you have, I'll be glad to try to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Neary? Okay. Not. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Johnson.
Just like to congratulate him. It sounds like he's put a lot of hard work into it with the other group and everything, but it's pretty nice funding, I'd say.
Yeah, there's also a steering committee and a technical committee that have been involved in this too, so it's all been a part of it. So, yeah, everybody's been working hard on this. Next item is the approval of the minutes of the February 18th regular meeting.
I move we approve them.
Second.
It's been motioned second that we approve the minutes of February 18th. Is there any discussion on that motion? Alderman Mosley?
Yes, I was reading the minutes and the Planning Commission appointments section there. It does not mention the vote. It just talks about interviews and then a motion to appoint Craig Johnson, Adrian Green to the Planning Commission. And it doesn't talk about the vote. I'd prefer to see something in there to show that we at least voted on people that come up with the final three.
Yeah, we can add that. We never have before. I mean, that the vote is a matter of public record if somebody would request it, but
Well, I'm not sure he's saying he wants the actual numbers. Or do you want the you don't want the actual numbers?
Just something to reflect that we voted and came up with the top three or something like that.
okay.
That we held some type of.
It basically says that, that moved to a point, and so it doesn't say that there was a vote. So,
Okay.
yeah, and I think that's what Alderman Mosley's referring to, that it was voted on by the
We can
alderman.
get that. That's an easy
Do I
add.
need to make a motion on that? Or
Nope.
Okay.
No.
That's easy.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to adopt the minutes, and if we could say as amended, would that be okay? Yeah. All those in favor with the approving the minutes of the February 18th meeting as amended at this meeting? All in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Minutes are approved. Next item is public comment. I have one public comment card tonight, and we'll listen at this time because it's not on an item that's on our agenda. Mr. Arnold?
Bill Arnold, 22 Riverwood Place. My comments tonight are relevant to the Alderman Saunders letter that's in your package. Your last meeting, there was some conversation went between several of you about recovering the costs from the aquatic center. When I left that meeting, I was concerned that there wasn't any relevant data on anything like that. So I went and started looking on the computer to see if there was any data available on aquatic centers and cost recovery for them. When I finally found the correct Boolean search string, I got more than I wanted to find. If you want to find anything on it, it is aquatic center cost recovery or cost recovery for aquatic centers, and you'll find over 200 documents out there. I'm going to give you a thumbnail of what I found. The Facilities Development Department at UCA Swimming noticed a trend in pool closings beginning in 2009. During the 2-year period between the spring of 2011 and 2013, almost 1,100 commercial and institutional pools closed throughout the U.S., 7 in Arkansas. The reasons for closing: older pools were ignored and it would cost too much to fix them. There was some poor planning for those pools, and budget cutbacks by cities caused closings. There was a survey done by one of the, and I don't remember who did it, I didn't write that down. There was 24 aquatic centers in the western states that were surveyed to determine financial success. They found the cost recovery varies from a low of 37% to a high of 71% in the western states. And the average cost recovery for indoor aquatic centers is around 51%, and outdoor aquatic centers, 57%. Dr. John Compton at Texas A&M, he's a leading educator and researcher on the benefits and economic impact of leisure services, states his experience indicates the national average for cost recovery is around 34%. Comparable analysis is not possible. Each community defines it differently. In addition, there's not a standard for a typical cost recovery target goal. What I found in all the rest of the things I looked at, there is one, they're called Councilman Hunsaker. They were founded by the Doc Councilman, who was the legendary swim coach for Indiana 40 years ago. They have done 850 aquatic center planning and design projects. Some of the information I found from their information and some other information is some aquatic centers that include water parks are recovering all costs. That is, if they have slides and all the other things, they're getting over 100%, some of them well over 100%. Most aquatic centers that have been built in the last 10 years are not covering their operating expenses with revenues. There's virtually no possibility of recovering all operating costs through facility revenues. Outdoor pools draw revenue from indoor pools during the summer months. Some cities are cutting back hours to weekends only to cut costs, and that was specifically a place in Florida that could no longer had the funds to subsidize their pools. They had to cut back to Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. There are several cities that are leasing the facilities to management companies or bringing in the YMCA to manage their facilities for them because they can't run them and manage them successfully. My concerns about I'm focusing on the aquatic center, but you should think about any project that you're discussing for putting on a bond for the rest of us, for your bankers to fund, that you should do some kind of cost analysis or cost recovery analysis on it to determine whether or not the city is going to have to subsidize it. In the proposed Maumelle Aquatic Center, I have a couple of concerns. It's like a startup business. I realize it's a zero profit. It's not a profit center like some of us have run profit centers in the past. But in the project and the cost, O&M costs, there is not a startup cost. And the startup cost will be at least half of what the O&M is to get it. You've got to hire somebody. You've got to get all of the resources in place. You've got to get the pool filled. You've got to pay for that before you can start up. You can bring in some revenue by doing have people sign up before you have the place, but it won't bring in enough revenue to run it. If you look at it, if you have to fund half the cost, it's going to be $233K that the city's going to have to put out to start the business. An optimistic cost recovery, if you look at the cost recovery figures I found, 70% would require $133,000 a year subsidy. And my question is, how are they going to be funded? Does the city have the funds without raising revenues by other means? A lot of other cities are taxing the people for their pools. There are some cities that own the water companies. They're putting in the water bills. And if it's not just self-sustainable, how's it going to impact the bankers, and how's it going to impact the aquatic center? Alderman Saunders, when he talked about the pro forma, if you were going to start a business and go to your bankers for the money, you would have to have a revenue income or a cost analysis sheet that would show that you would start making money within a certain amount of time or you're not going to get the money for it. And that's my concern about, you should look at all of the projects. There's two projects, the event center and the aquatic center that have significant O&M. And just based on best business practices, I would recommend, and it's my most humble but nevertheless correct opinion, you need to do a cost recovery analysis. If you have to pay $20,000 to do it, it's better than having $133,000 that you have to pay when it starts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Alderman Norris.
I had a quick question for you, Mr. Arnold. You were saying cost recovery. Are the costs that you're referring to the yearly operating and maintenance costs?
Yes.
But not the cost of building the
No.
pool? Okay.
No, it's
I
only
just
the
wanted
cost
to
of maintaining it after it's been built.
Thank you.
Sure.
Alderman Johnson.
Excuse me, I got a different impression. I thought you were talking also about before we get the income coming in, we're going to have cost to get to a point.
That's true of any business that you start.
Sure,
And you've got to look at it like it's a business. You're starting a business, and when the day that business door opens, you've got to have some seed money to run that business until it brings in enough revenue to pay for itself. And that's it. The only reason I've had I've had to do some of that when I was working for Deloitte Consulting, and we were doing some business with other companies. We had to show that we were going to make money somewhere downstream to pay for what we were putting into it.
And that was not in the 450,000
No, it was
they
not.
were estimating.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. Now, 450 was for O&M only.
Well, but it does include the water to fill it up the first time. It also has a 20% contingency in there. So, I mean, there is some now. Did we factor out that we'll pay somebody a week of training or a couple of weeks of training prior to opening the pool? No, we didn't do that. But the staff would be covered on an annual basis. It's what it is in there. So one of the things, if you look at the O&M cost, if the pool doesn't open until June or July, let's say July, the O&M cost is only half of what that estimate was, simply because you only have half the staff and all that. But he's right. I mean, you're going to have expense that you're going to incur prior to the actual open date of the facility on your O&M side of it.
Yeah. Normally, if we were doing it in a spreadsheet analysis, we'd be putting in line items that are going to cost us, and the line items are going to bring revenue, and then we'd see where they start matching out and start coming out where we at least have zero at the end. What you're looking for, you're just looking for zero. You're not looking for. We used to do cost profit analysis. Right. You guys are not running for a profit center.
We would take it if it did that. Okay, I don't have any other public comment cards from anybody. Next item is the financial statement review, and that's done at the second meeting of each month. Next item is a procedural motion. I need a motion from the floor to read all resolutions and ordinances by title only.
So moved. Second.
It's been motioned second that the council read all resolutions and ordinances by title only. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. First item under unfinished business is the third reading of ordinance number 842, amending a master street plan. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 842, an ordinance amending the Master Street Plan for the City of Maumelle, Arkansas, and for other purposes.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Ordinance 842.
Second.
Second. It's been motioned second that the council approve ordinance number 842. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Alderman Lewis.
Yes.
Alderman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman Norris.
Yes.
Alderman Hogue.
Yes.
Alderman Anderson.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Saunders.
Yes.
Alderman Mosley.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item is the second reading of ordinance number 843, amending building permit fees. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 843, an ordinance amending building permit fees in the City of Maumelle and for other purposes.
Alderman Mosley.
Yes, I've been doing a little research here and just wanted to throw out some more information on this ordinance for your consideration. As we discussed last week, I think the rates that we would be raising the building permits would equate to about $140 per $2,500 square foot house, and that anyway, it'd be about that amount. And I wanted to put that in perspective with some of the things that have been going on around Arkansas over the years. There's been other cities that have actually gone a lot further than just building permit fees and have gotten into impact fees and things like that on building construction. The idea being to protect the residents from costs of development in high growth areas like cities such as Fayetteville, Bentonville, Lowell, Hot Springs, Cabot, and Conway. All these cities, and I think Rogers too had proceeded toward some impact fees. Some of them were as small as $1,200 per house, and some were as large as $4,897 per house. That's quite large compared to what we're looking at here. I did make a phone call, and I need to do some more research on this. I made a phone call to Cabot, and from what I understand from an email that I got back, they've actually dispensed with their impact fees up there in Cabot. They don't do that anymore, and I need to kind of check and see what they're doing in other cities at this point, just to make sure that this isn't old information. But anyway, the whole point is we've, over the years, we have not joined in with a lot of these high-growth cities in installing impact fees on developers. And so we've actually been a very developer-friendly city, as it appears to me, as far as fees and things like that for developers for housing. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. If we had been charging, since some of these other cities, we had a $4,000 impact fee at 75 houses is what we built, I think, last year. That would
76, yes.
That would equate to about $300,000 per year in revenue we would have gotten that we could have set aside for infrastructure, roads, fire stations, things like that have been resulted from all of our growth. And I think a lot of our expenses here, as far as like the last bond issue, that was to develop a road to help drain traffic from high growth areas and things like that. So if we had had impact fees all this time, we might have not have had to go to the residents for quite so much money. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out there as something to be thinking about. When you look at those numbers, $125 or $140 per $2,500 square foot house is not much.
I think you need to research your law on impact fees. The impact fees have to be spent in that subdivision they're collected in by state law now. They changed the state law after they originally started them. So basically, the only road you could build or the only fire station you could build would have to be in that subdivision. So you couldn't build a road that counts mass extension based on all the development that's in West Maumelle.
All right.
So just check your state laws, and that's why I think some of the cities have pulled out of it.
There's a lot of research.
There's a lot of research. I checked into them in 2007, and that's the main reason not to do them is you'll collect funds, and then it can only be spent there. So you'd wind up with 10 fire stations, because you got to put one in every neighborhood, and I don't. That's not practical. I understand, because then you got to staff 10 fire stations, but that's kind of the thing. So you could do it as parks and things like that. But Conway did impact fees, but it's when you get into the program and when you started charging them based on the state law of where you can spend those funds at. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah. Alderman Hogue.
I was just going to say, I believe the council has discussed impact fees in the past, and we decided it was not something that we felt like we wanted to pursue.
That's correct. That was 2007, 2008 time frame, I believe. Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think trying to figure out different ways to raise revenue and to, maybe get our city in line with other cities around us, to be more, conscious on the revenue that we might be able to bring in. But I do want to caution all of us to be careful on the timing. I think maybe it's a great idea to start looking that way, but I also don't want to circumvent any kind of growth that we might be getting emerging out of our recession, time period. So that's the only thing that would concern me with this ordinance at this time is maybe the timing on it, and seeing if there's any other cities that are growing at the same rate as ours. If they're doing anything like that, I would be very surprised if they were doing this at that time. So that's just how I feel about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah, I'm going to try to do a little bit more research over the next 2 weeks here on what those cities are doing. And I am not at this time proposing any impact fees. So.
Okay, if there's no more discussion on ordinance 843, we'll move on to new business. First item under new business is resolution number 2014-12 regarding surplus property. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, resolution number 2014-12, a resolution to approve the disposal of city surplus property.
And Mr. Cogdell's here tonight to answer any questions you've got on the next couple of items, because they're items that are coming from the Public Works Department.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve Resolution 2014-12.
Second.
It's been motion second that the council approve resolution number 2014-12. Is there any discussion on that motion? Alderman Hogue.
I wanted to ask Mr. Cogdell exactly what truck this was that he's replacing.
Robert Cogdell, Public Works Director. That's the first, I guess it was the yard waste truck, compact yard waste truck that we bought back in 2000. And it just wore out. I mean, It's been out for a long time, but that was the very first truck we had, and it's seen its life.
And it'll be replaced with,
Well, we're using another 2005 Sterling in that place
is
now.
it like a garbage truck that we're
Yes,
using, a regular
right.
garbage truck?
Right.
We won't be replacing the same type truck then?
Not now. I mean, we probably will have to at some point because, if we continue to do the yard waste collection and recycling collection and all that, we're going to need some more of those semi-automated trucks.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Alderman Mosley.
Is it a garbage truck that we're getting rid of?
Right. It's an old semi-automated 25-yard rear compaction truck.
Oh, okay, okay. For some reason, I was picturing the one that comes around and we pick up the stuff and stick it in the
This
back.
is one that have the two gentlemen on the back generally that pick it up and put it in there manually.
Okay, okay.
Semi-automatic.
I've always been fascinated with the one where we come around and pick up the stuff.
The knuckle boom.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions or discussion on resolution number 2014-12, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Bless you.
Thank you.
Was that a no?
No, it was not. I don't get to vote.
Next item is resolution number 2014-13 regarding surplus property. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, resolution number 2014-13, a resolution to approve the disposal of city surplus property.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve Resolution 2014-13.
I second it.
It's been motion second that the council approve resolution number 2014-13. Is there any discussion on that motion? Alderman Mosley.
Yes, sir. Have we already replaced those vehicles? We already have vehicles
Yes.
purchased?
Yes.
Are these vehicles just sitting vacant at this point?
Well, the truck replacement, they were not the last. 2 or 3 years over the past 2 or 3 years, we replaced them on, and I just haven't went to an auction with them because really don't know what they're worth. I don't really know what they're worth now. They're just some have body damage, motors, lots of miles on them. Just not really the dependable vehicles.
All right. And you dispose of them through an auction?
That's what I'm going to try to do is that online. I was going to try one on Mr. Clausen mentioned that we have an online auction type thing now. I thought we might try that or possibly take them to Blackman's auction. They have, out at, I think, Reynolds Aluminum. We've taken some stuff there in the past before, too.
All righty. All right, thank you.
If there's no other questions or discussion on resolution number 2014-13, all those in favor of approving resolution number 2014-13, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is resolution number 2014-14, amending the 2014 general fund budget. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Placerville County, Arkansas, resolution number 2014-14, a resolution to amend the 2014 general fund budget.
This is a grant that the police department received from the Department of Justice, and they want to use those funds to purchase a FLIR camera for the police department.
I move we approve it.
Second.
It's been motioned second that the council approve resolution number 2014-14. Is there any discussion on that motion? Alderman Norris?
What is a FLIR camera?
If Chief Williams, is he out there?
Yeah.
It's I know it's infrared, but yeah, it's
Forward-looking or something. Oh, so you were going to take care of that?
It's Sam Williams, Police Department. It stands for Forward Looking Infrared System, FLIR. It's infrared and with some other technology. They're not all infrared anymore, but it's night vision equipment. It allows you to not only see better at night, it also picks up heat sensors. So you can actually see where someone has been outside if the weather is good, and you get there quick enough, so it can help in tracking, locating, and also seeing in areas where you wouldn't normally be able to see. One of the things that we're excited about, we've got one now, and one of the things that we are excited about, we have learned from interviewing people as they are breaking into cars while we're patrolling neighborhoods. If they see us coming, they just get behind a tree or a bush or something and crouch down, wait for us to drive by, and then go back to flicking locks, as we like to call it. If we have one of these in the vehicle and it's operating, they'll glow. There'll be a glow behind the bush, and they're back there. So that's what it is.
Thank you.
Yes.
hold on, Chief. Got more. Alderman Mosley?
That was my question.
Okay.
So I'll pass.
Alderman Kelly?
Thank you, Mayor. The only question I have, is this a vehicle-mounted camera?
Yes, sir.
Portable?
No, sir, it's a vehicle mounted. It's right there by the spotlight, actually, so you can direct it. And it will, you can see it on the monitor of our onboard computers, so you can have it on a relatively big screen also.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, if there's not any other questions or discussions on this resolution, all those in favor of resolution number 2014-14, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Okay, at the last council meeting, it was mentioned that the council wanted, by some members, that they wanted to do another workshop regarding the bond projects. And so it was discussed where to have it and that sort of thing, and people didn't want to have it here. So I checked on the availability of the South Room. The South Room at the Community Center was only available 6 nights in the month of March that weren't a Friday or Saturday or Sunday night. So, and one of those was a city council meeting, one of those was a planning commission meeting, and another of those I was out of town. So that left us with 3 possible meetings dates to have them, and you see them on here. It's the 20th, the 26th, or the 31st. And so I was hoping by publishing those in the agenda items that y'all would come here tonight knowing which night would work best for the council. So
Any night suits me,
Okay.
any of those nights.
any of those?
Yeah, same here.
I'm out of town on the 20th and the 26th, so the 31st is best for me. However, I'm willing to work technology if
We've done it before.
Lewis is willing to help me.
31st is great for me.
Is everybody else available on the 31st then? And that's the 5th Monday, so it kind of falls in line with when we normally meet kind of deal. So, all right, we will shoot for March the 31st for the bond workshop. We'll get a notice out, and we'll it'll be at the South Room and everything. So, 6 p.m. I assume. Just start at 6 p.m.
South Room, you said?
And maybe we won't have a snowstorm that night.
I hope not.
All right. Next item is the first reading of ordinance number 844, amending animal ownership and care fines and fees. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 844, an ordinance amending fines and fees concerning animal ownership and care in the City of Maumelle and for other purposes.
Okay. Alderman Hogue?
I just was curious, would that fine money go into the general fund, or will it be used specifically for the animal control, or has that decision been made?
It goes into the general fund. I mean, all fines would go into the general fund. Could we keep track of it and then, know how much has been spent down there? That's possible. These suggestions came from Ms. Rita Kavanaugh at the Animal Services. So because she just felt like some of them were way too low as far as some of the things they were seeing, and some of them didn't have a second and third offense, and so we added some of those. So if you see the strike through, that means it's been actually changed, and some have been changed from a single amount to at least and not more than range, basically given a range. Some were already in a range, and that range has just been adjusted. Very few of the first offenses have been adjusted as far as most of them are exactly what they were. It's when you get into second and third offenses, and that's what I understood the problem is. We have several second and third offenses. It's not the first offense that they're after necessarily targeting, even though there is a couple of increases. And one of them, as you see, is failure to vaccinate against rabies. It's being doubled from 50 to 100, but if you remember last year, we had a pretty scary outbreak of rabies in Maumelle and especially around our area out in the county. And then the state had a big issue with rabies. Now, it was skunks mainly, but that brought it in. But if your pet's not vaccinated against the rabies, then it could be very serious for that pet. Alderman Johnson?
Yes, just a question of curiosity. How do we really enforce some of these? If we get the dog and bring it in, is that what we force them to do? Or if a dog's out there and doesn't have a tag on it, do we stop and give them a ticket or something? How do we do that?
Well, I mean, it's usually the dog that we capture that's going to be. I mean, I don't know that we go around and someone that's walking their dog around, do we check to see if they're carrying their license on them or not? But I think it's mainly the ones that we catch at large is the main problem that these are dealing with. Alderman Mosley?
Yeah, I was going to ask, as far as public nuisance, is that like barking dogs, things like that?
That's what that is. I asked that same question. I said, I don't see a barking down here anywhere. Well, and if Madam City Attorney wants to weigh in, that was her exact comment to me, was that's handled under the nuisance violation, basically.
All right. One other question. Do we have some estimate of how much revenue this would bring in over the course of a year by bumping these fees up?
I don't have that. We can see if Ms. Kavanaugh can have that by the next meeting.
Okay. That's not that important if that's not the reason for it. It seems like it's more of a deterrent here is what we're really after.
It's encouragement is what it is. That's the main goal is to get people to comply with our rules.
And that's what I was getting from it, to the extent that it's really the second and third offenses. And, if we get them down to all first offenses, it probably might not increase the revenue, but that would be a lot of time that they would probably save. So, that's just my opinion. They're trying to cut down the second and third offenses.
Okay. Was that your comment, Alderman Johnson? All right. Alderman Norris?
Excuse me. A couple of the last ones seem that the second offense... the fine is lower than the first offense
on the range. Yeah.
Well, and and I'm the one that kind of forced these to come in, the second and third offense. Normally, what I was told is these on the vicious animals mainly. Those are usually dogs that are basically removed from the city and removed from that person at least, because it's normally going to be a banned breed, or it's going to be a breed that has already attacked somebody. And this is the analogy I've been given: a dog gets one free bite. So the first time it bites somebody or something, it's not declared vicious necessarily. But the second time, that's when it reaches that vicious level. So that, you know, the animal gets the free bite. So that's kind of the there. And typically what's going to happen is it's going to be the lower fine is usually what's going to be charged on the at least $250 and not more than. And then it kind of gives the judge some leeway if he wants to go up to $300 on the second offense. Now, if it's an egregious offense, then the judge could put $500 on the very first one. But these were at Rita's suggestion. We can amend these, but we're just trying to bring it forward to the council and try to, like we said earlier, influence people to follow the law, basically, on the first time that they're made aware of it, and not get them to the second.
It would just make more sense to me if the second and third offense cost more than the first offense. Mm-hmm. But the way the numbers work out, it doesn't.
It could, but I mean, it could, but it doesn't necessarily have to. That's correct. All right, we'll look at those numbers. I'll discuss those with Rita and Madam City Attorney and see if we need to do anything more to those, if that's okay.
We get the first bite free too.
I don't know anything about that. You might be charged with assault or something like that. Alderman Hogue?
I just wanted to mention, I see it says dogs and cats at large. I get cats, to me, cats are a bigger problem than dogs because people just turn their cats out and think they have free reign. Do we have any mechanism other than them being able to catch the cat, which is very difficult?
That's all we have because it's hard to identify who they are sometimes. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Whose cat they are. That's correct.
But if they can catch them, they can take them.
They can. Yes, ma'am.
Or if I can catch them.
I would suggest you let animal control catch them.
We have asked for traps.
Okay. But I would let them deal with it. I really would. So, Alderman Lewis?
In order to determine a second and third offense, does it always stay with the owner? And here's what I mean by this. In some of these cases, this might be applicable to where we consider a second offense if Fido gets loose for the second time and we round him up and he's still not rabies-vaxxed. Obviously, we're going to tack on the second offense. But if it's a different dog in that household, is the second offense applied to the owner? Does that make sense?
So both would be.
Janann, can you answer that question?
Yes, I can answer that question. It's going to be, we don't tag the dog, we tag the owner, so that they're cited, you know, it doesn't necessarily follow that it's the same dog. It's the same owner with a different dog. They're going to be cited as a second offense.
Thank you.
She was paying attention.
Alderman Mosley?
I guess I've been living below the radar. I didn't even realize it was against the law to have a cat roaming. It is against the law to have a cat roaming?
It is.
We have cats roaming. None of the neighbors seem to care one way or the other. I don't care, but
You have to fix that.
There's a leash law, and it applies to dogs and cats.
Dogs
now,
and cats.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. I'd almost favor excluding cats if other people would be interested in doing that, but because cats don't seem to bother me. But
they bother some people.
yeah, I'm going to just throw that out there, and I'll mull that over. Cause
Okay.
I didn't realize that was even against the law.
Alderman Lewis?
Worthy discussion, perhaps, but I beg you, please don't go there. I don't want to have that conversation
Might
with
end up
everyone.
like the golf carts, maybe.
Oh.
Well, and I will tell you that sometimes the barking dogs are related to a roaming cat that walks the fences. So you know, we know it happens. I mean, we see it happen. So that's a lot of times it's the cat that may antagonize the dog and just walk his fence. And the dog goes crazy, and then a neighbor calls. So.
See what Jake said.
right, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions on that item, it'll be on the second reading at the next council meeting, and we'll check on the larger fines on some of the vicious animals and discuss that with Janan and Rita. Next item is the first reading of ordinance number 845 regarding construction and remodeling permits. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 845, an ordinance amending the requirements for applications for construction and remodeling permits in the City of Maumelle and for other purposes.
Okay, this is a ordinance that Mr. Morley brought forth, and it's basically just complying with state law. They made a change in 2011, and we didn't make that, or we didn't keep up with that change. But it was Act 1208, and Alderman Lewis actually sent me an email checking on what's the state law, and so I didn't even look up the state law, but we did find it, and Mr. Morley and I looked at it, and this is the law that pertains to it. So it was done in 2011, and so we're just trying to catch our code up to that. Mr. Morley's here to answer any questions if you got any. Alderman Hogue?
Well, I thought 2,000 was kind of low, but if it's state law, it's state law. But it only applies to contractors.
I'll let Mr. Morley answer that. I think I know that, but I'll let him answer that.
Jim Morley.
Money.
Yeah, Director of Code Enforcement Permits. Yes, there's been a history over the years of contractors coming in, doing residential work, and doing a half job and running away with the money. So $20,000 was just a lot of money for somebody to lose $15,000. So our code officials of Arkansas group was pushing for $1,000 just to protect citizens, but the state wanted to go with $2,000. But that is just for contractors that do work at residential properties where the job is over $2,000. And they are just required to have a state license.
But a homeowner can do.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It doesn't affect.
You don't have to have a permit.
Some things, homeowners that do work, they have
permits.
Yes.
Or
yeah, and we just
in your house and
right
pertaining to this. I
yeah,
got you.
yeah, that wouldn't affect a homeowner doing his own remodeling.
Alderman Norris?
So is the change from 20,000 to 2,000 state law, or is that?
It is a state law.
Okay.
And I was looking in our code book at, we've had some building code changes coming, and I was looking at that section of the code and realized that our code still said 20,000. Now, the Contractors Licensing Board is the one that's in charge of doing those licenses and enforces that, but we are to go along with that. And this is more for notice, people looking in our codes to see what our codes are. We just want to be consistent with state law.
Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, the state law basically is written in reverse. Basically, it says you don't have to have a contractor's license when the work does not exceed $2,000. Where basically we're saying when it's $2,000 or greater, you have to have that license. So the state law is written in reverse of what we're writing it in, but it's just that's the way ours was written. So it's, it's the dollar amount's exactly the same. I mean, well, might be $1 off if it does not exceed and it's 2,000 or greater, but it's very close. So, yeah.
I probably would have figured that out.
Yeah. Just want to make sure that if someone looks at it, it says does not exceed, and it's exempting them if it does not exceed.
Okay.
So, there are other questions on ordinance number 845? Thank you, Mr. Morley. It will also be on second reading at the next meeting. Next item is mayor's comments, and just wanted to mention that the single stream recycling started last week. We have a picture, Mr. Clerk, showing our first load that was tipped at the MRF in Little Rock, and that truck contained 5.79 tons of recycled material, so almost 6 tons. And so you see that's a semi-automated rear loader garbage truck right there. So, but it's tipping there. We're still getting requests for additional bins. We currently, in our system, and we took over a system that somebody else had started, according to Joni a little bit. So we have 1,970 addresses in our system that has 2,300 bins, approximately 2,300 bins. But we took out 449 bins to 229 homes last week. So that's included in those numbers. So, but we're going to do an audit one of these days in the near future once this gets rolling good, and try to track and make sure that how close we are on the at least the addresses. We'll never probably track down the bins, because what happens is the bins used to be sitting at the recycling building, and some people helped themselves to them sometimes when they were sitting out there, or maybe one of the workers handed them one and didn't get an address in our previous system. So we're working on that to get it audited. But it is getting lots of publicity, and like I say, we've been very busy delivering the bins. Alderman Lewis?
One thing I was going to see, Mr. Mayor, if you could ask this question. They may not be able to tell us this, but sometimes with different communities, contamination rate comes up as an issue based on what recyclable goods are given. And I don't know if they have a way of tracking just the loads that we drop off to see how we're doing in terms of contamination rate. But it could be,
they're going to monitor it. They will monitor it, and that's part of the deal. In the agreement that we're working on right now to bring before the council, contamination is one of the issues, and we'll be responsible if the loads become too contaminated. And that's the advantage that we actually have by having people tip it in the rear of the truck by hand. They're going to see that contamination when it goes in. If you use the one-arm bandit or the automated truck where the arm picks up the can and drops it, there's a camera showing you as that item drops in there. But once you've dropped it in there, basically the load's contaminated. You can't crawl up inside that truck and get it back out. Where if our workers tip it, they may see the contamination laying there before they compact it and move it forward, and they're able to pull that contamination out. Now, if it's in a bag, there's a possibility you wouldn't see it, but we really are going to we're going to have to check almost to see what's in that bag also. So I do know that there has been some problems with some contamination rates at other cities, and so that's something we think by doing it the way we're doing it will be better as far as less contamination.
Did I understand you correctly that we may see a permanent agreement perhaps before us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you will. Yeah,
Timeframe.
hopefully in the next couple of meetings. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm waiting on a response back from Waste Management. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Alderman Johnson?
One last question along those. I was driving through a neighborhood the other day, and they had rather than a blue thing, they had a green one out, and I'd never seen that before. It had a green one out. I don't know.
We're only going to accept ours, so they'll need to contact Public Works. So because the size may not be the same, I don't know. So
I don't know. I just happened to see one, and it was green in color.
Yeah, and they may have brought it from somewhere else. I don't know that we've ever had green ones. So, Alderman Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Question I have is, are we going to be able to track to see if we're reducing our tipping fees?
We're going to audit that and do that also. We know exactly how much we tip at the landfill. We know what we've been tipping. We know what we're going to haul to the MRF. And so if we see a reduction in our tipping at the landfill, then that will show a cost savings. It's, we'll see. We'll have to do it over a period of time, not just, one day and 1 week and all that. But we think
I just wanted to make sure that we were definitely going to do that.
We are doing that, yes, sir.
That'll show this program pays for itself.
Right.
I think Mr. Cogdell wanted to address this.
Okay.
What I've done right now, I've been keeping up with the time before when we were doing it, sorting at the curb, and as right now, but just on what little day we have, we're getting through about an hour to hour and a half sooner now than we were before. So it's going to save some time, plus, it's going to be a lot simpler that way.
Right.
And we've already ordered our second order of bins, too.
All right. I mentioned last meeting that I had started on a bond survey. I didn't get it done. All this is my draft. There's not anything magical about this survey. You can mark it up. You can throw it in the trash. You can do whatever you want to with it. But just want to pass those down and just, and what I would suggest, it's too much to sit here and read and digest tonight, but if you want to just look at it and then we can discuss it at the workshop, is what I would say, or after the workshop. But this is just a first draft, and you can strike through half the detail on it. You can strike through the questions and come up with something different if that's what you want. And if you would, Alderman Mosley, pass one to Mr. Sandlin there, if you don't mind.
That watermark that specifies draft. Good
I
touch
was,
there, Mr.
I was
Mayor.
trying to make sure that, it wasn't.
Front and back.
Yeah, it's front and back. It's not gospel. And that's right. The survey's front and back. And this is kind of how we thought it would go out, too. Trying to give you that information, too. To get this information on it takes 2 sheets. So it would go out in an envelope like this. So, but if you don't like it, we can start over. If you don't, if you want to use this as a base, we can take it and develop it. But that's it. And like I say, it's too much for you to read right now. But I do want you to consider it and then make suggestions or tell me to throw it away. So. The other thing under mayor's comments, and I didn't, when we had the agenda, I wasn't aware this was going to happen, but we had our latest winter event, sleet event this time, basically not a snow event. But I do want to compliment our firefighters, our police officers, and our public works personnel that worked tirelessly through this event. And we basically, at the fire department, they've started upping their staffing during these events. And so, as I understand it, we're going through 7 a.m. in the morning currently with that additional staffing. And we run medicals with four-wheel drive vehicles. The police were out. They have to change cars and get studded tires and in order to be able to respond to calls. And basically, they were out last night with the vehicle. Everybody was out. Police and fire and MEMS were all out at the vehicle that ran into the switchgear box. So they all had to respond to that event, driving on icy roads and everything. And then also Public Works was blading last night. We had a full complement come in about 5 o'clock yesterday, and they bladed the streets until they froze, basically, on us. That's what happened last night. The temperatures got so cold that it just froze what slush and sleet was there. And so we got a lot of the roads bladed and got them started, but then some of the roads, once they froze, the blades just wouldn't do anything to it. Then we worked on salt and sand in the bad areas and all that. But people worked all night to be able to provide as safe a roadway as we could this morning for everybody. And it's evident when you drive down certain streets, you can tell where the plows have been and they haven't been. But also when you get into outside of Maumelle, you can see that some of those areas hadn't been touched by a plow. The highway department works with us on the overpass over here, and so sometimes we're both treating it and trying to keep it open because it's a very dangerous spot if you don't keep it treated and ice off of it. Alderman Johnson?
With him here, I would like to say that also our public works supervisor, I was driving to the post office today, and he was out grading the street. He was driving the grader and everything, and I asked him tonight, I said, was that your grader? He said, yes, it was.
Yeah, I talked to Robert on the phone last night. I think it was about 10 o'clock. He was in the grader then driving, so yep. All right, the next item is the Planning Commission report, and Alderman Johnson has got that report.
Yes, I attended it last Thursday, and a couple of things, and I forget the name of the guy with Bottom Line. It was the first item on there, and as I understand it, he has some humps out there on the property that he has out on the peninsula, and he was asking permission to grade those humps because it catches water and stuff like that, and he wanted to make it level and better out there, and they granted it to him unanimously, and will that one come to us?
Well, no.
Okay. No. Then the two items on the agenda was the preliminary plat for Country Club of Arkansas, both of them, and they withdrew them and going to bring them back to them. Then we had a request, about a 5-step program, and if I understand it all, is the common or the area over there where the new fire station is going to be located. They had about 5 different things, of which I think 2 of them are going to come to y'all, or come to us. One is a request for the curb cuts, and one is for the conditional use permit for that particular plot. And so we'll get those, not tonight, but we'll get them at the next meeting. In the meantime, I thought all of a sudden I got a package from the Planning Commission, and I thought if you had any interest in what the fire station is going to look like, where it's going to be laid out, and the bushes and stuff they have planned or everything. It's not in complete detail, but it's enough to give you an overview after the meeting. You can walk by and they're right here laid out on the table. And they adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Alderman Johnson. Alderman Mosley?
Yeah, this is going to be a conditional use permit. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's what we'd be voting on?
Yes.
And will that be a ordinance, or is that a
Resolution.
So we'd be voting on it that night?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Normally you'd vote on a resolution that night, yes, unless it's deferred for some reason.
Okay.
Next item is Alderman's comments. Alderman Lewis?
First thing I wanted to mention was city sales tax was tremendous for February. It was their best February, I think, in history, if I looked at the chart correctly. I sort of sat back and wondered why on earth we had such a great February of all months, but I think, if anything, it probably had to do with the weather. We saw a lot of people that actually flooded to the grocery stores and to pick up supplies. That's my only theory on that, but it was terrific to see that and a very encouraging sign. The other item that I wanted to mention was at the last Maumelle Water Management meeting. I think there were 4 aldermen present that night, and you, Mr. Mayor. The discussion of MSID 500, which is the Suburban Improvement District that is currently associated with Maumelle Water Management, is looking at refinancing of their bonds that they currently have that are outstanding, in addition to a conversion to a public water authority. Sounds like it's a very detailed process, but it does sound like one that they are very committed to and certainly very serious about, given the individuals that they had present at their meeting, including our own bonds counsel, Mr. Bill Spivey. So just something to be kind of on the lookout for as we see some possible changes in the works, and there was also discussion of perhaps them increasing their board size from 3 board members or 3 commissioners now to a total of 5. So just something to be on the lookout for. Thank you.
I do want to point out that the collection is from December, so typically that's always our highest one anyway because it's Christmas.
Okay.
So usually almost every city, their highest collection is going to come in February because we collect, it's taxes that were collected in December, remitted to the state in January, that they then send to us the following month.
Thank you, sir.
So just, yeah.
That's still a great month.
No, it was a good month. You're right. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, that just to clarify that it wasn't February's weather that did it. It may have been December's weather. Yeah, and we did have a snow event back in December also.
That's true.
Alderman Johnson?
Yes, I had an interesting phone call from Jerry Poole, and he asked me what the response was of the council on his request or his presentation to y'all as far as the traffic problem they have at the charter school, Pine Forest, and his property and everything. And I said, well, I didn't hear anyone say anything particular and everything, but I think he was looking for some kind of response from us, whatever it may be. And like he pointed out, it's been a problem for 25 years. I mean, it's not something that just started. And I might also mention the fact that the charter school looks like has increased their enrollment by 200, 100 next year and 100 there, assuming they get by an appeal. I don't know if the other group has appealed it. Mayor, do you know?
I don't know that if it's been appealed or not yet.
Right. Okay, but anyway.
I don't think the deadline has reached that.
Okay. Anyway, he was looking for some kind of response from the mayor and us as to, are we going to look at the problem?
Well, I mean, and I'll just say this, it'll be a budget item. So, I mean, if you're going to look at it, you're going to have to expend some funds to construct that roadway. So, I mean, I don't know that, we're prepared with that amount right now. I mean, so, I mean, it's not going to be cheap to build that road.
I understand.
Yeah.
I don't know which is the best way, or how to correct it. I mean, as far as that property, one piece of property has been sold to the charter school.
That's correct.
And then there was some point at one time they wanted another curb cut to have that street going in front of Pine Forest go right on back out to Maumelle Boulevard. And of course, everybody, and the mayor fights with it, I fought with it, same thing. Everybody, at the time, it was convenient to just go through his property and make the loop. And then he started blocking off his property when school starts. And it's always a problem. It seems to be, and it's more of a problem to him than some of us, because I don't take my children to charter school or anything. They're a little too old for that. But anyway, he was looking for some kind of response. But that's not the first time he's called me. Jerry calls me about just about anything that goes wrong and everything. But I would like to tell him something, and I think that may be a good answer. Hey, if we get the money, we might do something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'd have to look at it in the budget process.
Okay.
Yeah. Alderman Mosley?
As far as Mr. Poole's request, is that not something he should make a proposal and take it to the planning? Shouldn't he be taking that?
Well, it's not his property. He's wanting a road that's built on two other people's property, and he doesn't want to construct the roadway. He wants us to construct the roadway.
Stop him from going through his parking lot.
All right. Yeah, I understand his problem, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be his project necessarily, so it's not something he would take to the planning department or planning, it would be more something, and the request he's making it. And now, if somebody had a development going there, then that might be the deal that we request that they build a portion of the roadway or something like that.
All right. I've got a couple other items here, if nobody mind. I was wanting to ask Alderman Lewis a little bit more about, he had mentioned the MWM was thinking about moving toward a public water authority. Is that what you mentioned?
Yes, sir.
Now, is that going to satisfy our idea of a democratic process, or are we going to get close to that, or what do you see there? Can you elaborate?
Well, I think what we likely would see was with the addition of the two additional board members, I think there was considerable discussion as to they would continue to be selected by the city somehow, much as we select our liaisons currently. So it might fit into what your definition of democratic may be, but I think certainly there will be a greater buy-in as to the city's aspect of what they contribute to the board.
All right, thank you. One other item here is a couple of meetings ago I brought up the idea of I'm concerned about the traffic, especially the traffic that flows down Counts Massey and comes into Maumelle Boulevard, and had mentioned thrown out an idea of a freeze on high-density housing out there in that part of the town. And I'm still very concerned about that. I think we need to show the residents that we're trying to look after them here until such time as we can get that third entrance approved and built. And if some people have some ideas on how we can do that, I'd certainly love to make that a discussion. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up again. I haven't had a chance to delve into the idea of the high-density freeze at this point, but that's still on my radar. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman Mosley. Alderman Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to speak to the Mr. Poole's proposal or request. I thought it was more appropriate for cities, and I might be wrong, to let whoever's developing the land to have more of the process of building those streets and gutters. Am I correct on that? I mean,
that's normally the case in most instances when a developer comes in and builds a subdivision. They put in the roads. That's correct.
So it's very rare for a city to actually do the planning and implement.
It's not rare. It happens also. It's just like we're doing the Counts Massey extension. The city's working on that one. The city built Carnahan. They built Lewis Nelson. The city also built Robinson Road in the industrial park also.
How did that process come about? Like, I'm not understanding how the council would have input on deciding whether. I mean, I know it's going to be in a budgetary.
Well, now, as far as Carnahan, the middle school wanted to go there, and there wasn't a road there, and so part of the city owned the land, as I understood it. So part of the deal was the city built the road at that time. They also own that land too, so that's a big difference. Also, on the Robinson Road, it was a similar deal where trying to get another access point to a piece of property, and so the city built a portion of Robinson Road, or put the funds in to build a portion of Robinson Road. So, I mean, there's going to be all kinds of different factors that drive, sometimes it's just to make the connection. Sometimes the developers have built two roads, and now the city needs to make a connector to relieve congestion, similar to Counts Massey extension and then the third entrance. So, there's that sort of thing. So it doesn't necessarily have to come from an individual, but when a request is made, then you look at it and say, here's what can be done and here's the cost, and then the city would make that decision whether they wanted to expend those funds to alleviate the problem.
Well, and it would be kind of considered a connection, if we were.
It would be because
to alleviate that, because we are doing a very similar thing. I would love to get some buy-in or some involvement with the two schools.
And they would have to donate the land. And
yeah.
I
mean, I think there's going to have to be a task force or
and I've met with Mr. McGill about some of this, and I need to meet with Mr. Scott with the Pulaski County Special School District. In fact, I had it on my calendar to call him today, and they weren't in the office today. So
they won't be there tomorrow.
No, they might be today it said that all full-time employees wouldn't be at work, but they may just be letting the students out tomorrow. Who knows? But I don't know. So, but I did have it on my calendar to call him today.
Well, good. I wasn't sure how we could address it, as the council. So I appreciate enlightening me on that.
Alderman Johnson?
Just along those lines, to the extent, and one of his things is, hey, it's the parents of the school kids at charter and the parents at the school that will benefit more out of it than anyone else. Might be for us taking a shortcut, but that's the two main destinations would be the school and the loop where they drop their kids and go on around. And I don't know if you've been to the charter school now. They got the traffic flowing up this street, and you get up there, and if you're driving a school bus, they're parked all in there. You can't even get through with a school bus. So it is somewhat crowded and everything like that. And I know the charter school did buy the piece of property across the street from the library. Maybe they would be in a position to allow the land, but I don't know what the plans are or what they're going to build there or when they're going to build it or anything like that. And at certain times of year, and that you talk about making people mad, and I know the mayor dealt with it many times, where he puts up a barricade at both ends of his parking lot, and it makes people pretty mad, and it makes him mad. So, if there is some solution down the road, and it may not be this year, it may be next year, like I said, maybe but the problem hadn't been for 25 years. Whenever Pine Forest was built, would be the first point it was a problem, and then when charter school wasn't put in until 2001. So when I said 25 years, I don't know the age of Pine Forest, but it certainly wouldn't be any more than that.
More than that.
More than that, okay. But anyway.
But it also, there wasn't a problem at one point in time for driving through there either. So,
But Jerry didn't own it all then.
No, that's right. That's right. Alderman Hogue?
I was wondering, is there even the possibility to put a curb cut there? I know he said he had walked it and he thought it was, but I've
Well-
looked at it and I'm not sure. I think there's,
Well, I hadn't looked at it to see if it meets our master street plan requirements, and he mentioned the highway department specifically is the only one he mentioned. Our curb cuts specifically are for collector streets, and I don't know that Pine Forest meets that. It might. I hadn't looked at that aspect of it, but you've also got a ditch and some difference in elevations and everything right there. So it would be a strange connection right there, because if you wanted it to where it could be used correctly, you'd have to come in and tee in and then immediately start a acceleration lane, basically, and it's only going to be one way. It's not going to be a median cut. So I've looked at it and I see challenges there with dealing with the dam on the lake and everything. If you get it too close, now your acceleration lane is into the pathway because you're limited with space right there and everything. So,
and, I feel like if that's something the city's going to look at doing, and I'm not sure that we even want to look at it, but he at least has to have some skin in the game, I think. I don't see us doing it to satisfy his wants. And then I have one other thing, and then I'll shut up because I didn't intend to speak at all. But it has to do with the high-density housing out at the end of Country Club. I don't think we have anyone out there now that has requested high-density housing buildings, but I can tell you, and I told Alderman Mosley the night he brought it up the first time, I certainly will oppose it if we try to limit what people can build on their own property when the zoning is already there. That's kind of like the liquor store that's going in right now. It's the last thing in the world I wanted on the boulevard. And I did have conversation with you, and he paid for that land, and if that's what he wanted, that's what he should build. And I don't feel like we've got any business limiting somebody else on what they want to build on property they've paid for. If you don't like it, buy the property. And I'm done.
Alderman Norris?
I wanted to address a little bit of Alderman Mosley's question about Maumelle water management and what Alderman Lewis said. I think this is the exact type of direction that, based on the type of stuff you were talking about, that you would be interested in. By moving to a PWA, they're allowed to draft their own constitution and their own bylaws. They're not limited by the statutory constructions of the Suburban Improvement District. It is my understanding that in their constitution and bylaws, one of the things that they were hoping to accomplish is involve the city council into the selection process of the board members. The board members would be terms, and this is all in their constitution and bylaws, which isn't anything yet because they're just getting going with that. So it's subject to change. But my understanding is what they wanted to do was for each of those 5 positions, the 3 current board members roll over to the Public Water Authority, and then for all of those positions, as those terms become open, the city council selects the folks that they can choose to be their board members, if that makes sense. Like we sort of nominate the 2 or 3 people that we think we want them to choose from. And my understanding is also that they don't necessarily want a minimum number of nominees that the city council could send. So the city council could hypothetically send 1, at least as I saw it. So I think this is the type of thing that puts that extra layer of democratic control in the process of selecting the board members without the city having to come in and take over the water. So I just wanted to add that in there a bit. I was excited when I stumbled into the meeting and heard that. So,
Alderman Johnson?
You might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's also a public works group. In other words, in Tennessee, there's a public works group that they have to get approval to raise rates. They have to show them why they're raised and everything. I don't know if it's that way in Arkansas. But
Well, there's the Public Service Commission.
Right.
But that's only for private utility companies that make a profit. So it doesn't apply to a public water authority or a suburban improvement district or city-owned utility. It doesn't apply to those.
Okay.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes, sir. Wasn't one of the points they brought up for the PWA was to tie their service area to our city limits as well?
To our city limits plus our extraterritorial jurisdiction, except in the areas where there's already a conflict in service. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
So there's a lot of pluses that come in with the PWA.
Sounds like a very positive thing.
Okay, if there's no other alderman's comments, Madam City Attorney, do you have any comments?
No, sir, no comment.
Mr. City Clerk?
No, sir.
Okay, I just want to point out on the sales tax report, included in the sales tax was the NAICS information and I don't, some of the aldermen requested that, so it's at the back of that report for you to look at. It doesn't give you a lot of history because if you look, the biggest category is the one with categories with less than 3 members, so that's the largest one. So it doesn't give you a lot of information other than we can track this and start following a little closer and just kind of see, you can kind of see where your trend is going on certain possibly businesses or something like that. If nobody, and I will mention Planning Commission for March is Alderman Mosley, and it's been alluded to already, but Alderman Saunders had a memo in the package also, so that he wants y'all to read. So if there be no other business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 Meeting is adjourned, but please be careful driving home tonight.
How do you limit, well, limit use in Little North Little Rock? Can we do North Little Rock?